On April 20th, 2010, an explosion and fire occurred on the Deepwater Horizon semi-submersible mobile offshore drilling unit, a lot of words, which was owned and operated by Transocean and Drilling for BP in the Macondo Prospect oil field about 40 miles southeast off the Louisiana coast. The explosion and subsequent fire resulted in the sinking of the Deepwater Horizon and the deaths of 11 workers. 17 other workers were injured. The same blowout that caused the explosion also caused an oil well fire and a massive offshore oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, considered the largest accidental marine oil spill in the world and the largest environmental disaster in United States history. In February 2009, BP filed a 52-page exploration and environmental impact plan for the Macondo well with the Minerals Management Service, MMS, and an arm of the United States Department of the Interior that oversees offshore drilling. The plan stated that it was unlikely that an accidental surface or subsurface oil spill would occur from the proposed activities. In the event an accident did take place, the plan stated that due to the well being 48 miles from shore and the response capabilities that would be implemented, no significant adverse impacts would be expected. The Department of the Interior exempted BP's Gulf of Mexico drilling operations from a detailed environmental impact study after concluding that a massive oil spill was unlikely. In addition, following a loosening of regulations in 2008, BP was not required to file a detailed blowout plan. So it's like, they immediately relaxed these things, and then we had one of the biggest environmental disasters in U.S. history, and that's pretty impressive that, BP just was like, you know what, here, hold my beer. The U.S. Coast Guard had issued pollution citations for Deepwater Horizon 18 times between 2000 and 2010 and had investigated 16 fires and other incidents. These incidents were considered typical for a Gulf platform and were not connected to the April 2010 explosion and spill. The Deepwater Horizon had other serious incidents, including one in 2008 in which 77 people were evacuated from the platform when it tilted and began to sink after a section of pipe was incorrectly removed from the platform's ballast system. And you would think that this would be like, maybe we should hire more qualified people because obviously these people don't know what they're doing. But no, we didn't do that. No, we didn't do that. The American Bureau of Shipping last inspected the rig's failed blowout preventer in 2005. The blowout preventer was damaged in a previously unreported accident in late March 2010. So not only were you having issues, but you're not reporting them, which makes them 10 times worse because you should be reporting any incidents that you have, especially if it can have an environmental impact and or can be dangerous. I don't know why they didn't, but they didn't. According to Transocean, workers had been performing standard routines and had no indication of any problems prior to the explosion. The fire aboard the Deepwater Horizon reportedly started at 9:56 p.m. On April 20th. Transocean employees on the vessel stated that the electric lights flickered, followed by 2 strong vibrations. Jim Ingram stated that on the second thud, we knew something was wrong. After the explosion, Adrian Rose stated that abnormal pressure had accumulated inside the marine riser, and as it came up, it expanded rapidly and ignited. According to BP's internal investigation, a bubble of methane gas escaped from the well and shot up the drill column, expanding quickly as it burst through several seals and barriers before exploding. Rose said that the event was basically a blowout. Survivors described the incident as a sudden explosion that gave them less than 5 minutes to escape as the alarm went off. The explosion was followed by a fire that engulfed the platform. After burning for more than a day, Deepwater Horizon sank on April 22nd. The Coast Guard stated on April 22nd that it received word of the sinking, at approximately 10:21 a.m. On September 8th, BP published a report that suggested that the ignition source was the released gas entering the air intakes of the diesel generators and engulfing the deck area where the exhaust outlets for the main generators were emitting hot exhaust gas. According to officials, 127 people were on board, of whom 79 were Transocean employees, 7 were from BP, and 40 were contracted. Several of the BP and Transocean executives were on board for a tour of the rig, maintenance planning, annual goal reviews, a drops safety campaign, and to congratulate the senior staff of the rig for 7 years of operation without a lost time incident. Well, yeah, no, like, I feel like the minute you go to celebrate a victory, no matter how small it may seem, is the minute that the life is like, oh. A total of 115 people were evacuated. Lifeboats took 94 workers to the Tidewater-owned supply boat Damon Bankston with no major injuries. 4 were transported to another vessel, and 17 were evacuated by helicopter to trauma centers in Mobile, Alabama, and Marrero, Louisiana. I'm struggling with my words today. I'm so sorry. Most were soon released. The Coast Guard interviewed the uninjured workers on the Damon Bankston for several hours and then transferred them to another rig. The workers arrived in Port Fourchon, Louisiana. Probably didn't say that right. More than 24 hours later, the workers were transported to a hotel in Kenner, Louisiana, where they were provided with food, medical attention, and rooms with showers, and asked to fill out incident response forms. An attorney for a worker who brought suit against Transocean claimed that once the workers got to shore, quote, they were zipped into private buses. There was security there. There was no press, no lawyers allowed, nothing, no family members, end quote, and were coerced into signing the forms before being released. Transocean denied the allegation. Well, of course, they're going to deny it. Whether that actually happened or not, I don't know, but there was like this big conspiracy theory around this that like they did this to kind of bring, like intentionally did this to bring attention to like the, like, I don't know how to say this, but like the unsafe conditions that are often aboard these kinds of machines, and the fact that the government as well as companies who do this are not taking them seriously. So there is theory that this was done intentionally. I personally am of the founding that if they were going to do something to do that, I feel like it could have had less of an environmental impact and they could have come up with something else. I don't really think that BP would intentionally set out to do this because it would not only cost them time and money, and you know they essentially lost business because of what happened. And I can't see that BP would do that on purpose. And also, I don't know if you guys know, but BP used to be really popular out here in Ohio, and they're not really around much anymore. Like, this really screwed over BP, and they started going south, really. And I'm sure they still exist, but they're not doing as well as they were. That's for sure. And I just feel like BP personally probably would not do that because they wouldn't want to obviously damage their own business, and that makes them look bad. But then again, you know, everybody has their theory. That's the big conspiracy theory that surrounds this. Do I know if that's true? No, I don't think BP would do that though, because like I said, that costs them time and money they don't really have to just throw away. And you've seen a decline in like sales for them, and I think they eventually even sold to somebody else, I think, but I'm not sure. And like, why would you want to screw up your own business to make a point, you know? Initial reports indicated that between 12 and 15 workers were missing. Reports soon narrowed the number of missing to 9 crew members on the platform floor and 2 engineers. The United States Coast Guard immediately launched a rescue operation involving 2 Coast Guard cutters, 4 helicopters, and a rescue plane. The 2 cutters continued searching through the night, and by the morning of April 22nd, the Coast Guard had surveyed nearly 1,940 square miles. On April 23rd, the Coast Guard called off the search for the 11 missing persons, concluding that reasonable expectation of survival had passed. Officials concluding that the missing workers may have been near the blast and unable to escape the sudden explosion. A memorial service was held in May for the 11 workers to have been killed, or to have said to have been killed, in the disaster. On the morning of April 22nd, Coast Guard Petty Officer Ashley Butler stated that oil was leaking from the rig at the rate of about 8,000 barrels of crude per day. So that's just straight oil. Like, there's no dilution, there's nothing. So crude is just straight oil. Like, that's it. The next day, Landry announced that a damaged wellhead was indeed leaking oil into the Gulf and described it as a very serious spill. Which still sounds like kind of like they're trying to downplay it, like it's not that serious, but like it was serious. Like it was leaking. The report published by BP listed 8 failures which led to the disaster. Cementing was inadequate, valves to prevent backflow did not close, pressure test wrongly interpreted, leak not spotted soon enough, valve and blowout preventer failed when crew attempted to close it, mud gas separator failure, gas alarm system failed, and faulty battery in the blowout preventer. On April 21st, 2011, BP filed $40 billion worth of lawsuits against rig owner Transocean, cementer Halliburton, and blowout preventer manufacturer Cameron. The oil firm alleged that failed safety systems and irresponsible behavior of contractors had led to the explosion, including claims that Halliburton negligently failed to use cement modeling software OptiSem properly to analyze safe well requirements. Part of the modeling concern was about the number of stabilizing devices, known as centralizers, that well required. 21 were called for, but only 6 were used, which is like, obviously that is like a severe like cut. Like you should have had 15 more of those, and you instead just stuck with 6. You were like, you know what, 6 is good. 6 is good. Obviously it wasn't good. So I do think that in some ways that BP is not the only one to blame for this. I do think that the companies that helped make the machine, that, you know, shortcutted some corners and whatnot, they're to blame too. In June 2011, supplier Weatherford International settled with BP for $75 million. It's a lot of money. In October 2011, Anadark Petroleum agreed to pay BP $4 billion, and the two companies settled all claims between them. In December 2011, Cameron International agreed to pay a $250 million settlement to BP. In September 2014, Halliburton agreed to settle a large percentage of legal claims against it over the Deepwater spill by paying $1.1 billion into a trust by way of 3 installments over 2 years. So this is another conspiracy theory that comes up, that BP did this to get money. And if you think about it, they did get money, but it still ended up damaging them as a company. So this would be like the worst way to file a lawsuit for money. Like you would be really, pardon my French, fucked up if you did this on purpose just to get some cash. And it's like, it doesn't even go to like individual people, it goes to the company. So it's not like, you know, the owner or like the head honcho or whatever is getting that money. The company gets that money. They don't see a dime of it. So like, I don't know, because I'm not a head honcho of a big company like that. But again, I feel like there would be easier ways to like get money from people than, you know, blowing up a submersible oil driller and potentially losing at least 11 people. Well, not potentially, they did lose at least 11 people, 9 to 11 people that were never found. You know, I feel like there was better ways that they could have done that, if that's the case, that didn't cause loss of life to marine life as well as to human life, and obviously the damage it did to the ocean. And I mean, y'all remember when Dawn commercials were coming out left and right with the oil covered ducks that they were cleaning with their Dawn dish soap, which I don't know how that works, but you know, maybe it did work. I personally don't think Dawn dish soap does anything, because it certainly didn't kill the fleas of the baby kitten I rescued. I'm just saying. But yeah, like there's a lot of conspiracy theories that surround this, and most of them revolve around BP having done it on purpose in some way. Like I said, I've seen the damage that's done to BP over the years as a company. I don't think they would have done that, but then again, I'm also not a professional. I know that this was like investigated, like it was investigated, and I think in some ways they're still investigating it because they want to know what happened. Was it done on purpose? Who knows? Like, who would even make that decision? Like, who of BP would be like, you know what we should do? We should build a submersible that's gonna do nothing when an explosion happens, and then see how much money we can make off of it, potentially killing everybody on board. Like, who just would decide that? Like, I don't even know. I want to be the type of person that has like a better like belief that there's still good in the world and that nobody would do that on purpose, but like, dude, I don't know. People do some wild shit these days. On September 14th, 2014, U.S. District U.S. District Judge Carl Barber, I can't read my own typing, ruled BP was guilty of gross negligence and willful misconduct under the Clean Water Act. So, yes, they won their lawsuit, but then they lost a lawsuit. And in July 2015, BP reached an $18.7 billion settlement with the U.S. government, the states of Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas, as well as 400 local authorities. BP's cost for cleanup, environmental and economic damages and penalties had reached $54 billion. In January 2018, a detailed estimate of the ultimate costs of the oil spill, published in the Journal of Corporate Accounting and Finance, amounted to $145.93 billion. So yes, they won money, but it turns out that they actually ended up paying out a lot more than they made. And that's why I just have a really hard time thinking that they would do that on purpose and be like, you know what, let's make some money. Oh wait, now we're going to lose all that money because now we have to pay all of these people. And they actually had to pay a lot more people than the people who failed to make the system work, if that makes sense. So, I don't know. You guys let me know if you think it's a conspiracy, what your theory is. This is going to be a new Monday segment called Conspiracies and Cons. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I've got another great one coming up. You guys are going to be really excited about it. And then be here on Wednesday for Strange and Unusual, which is just basically where I talk about like the odd things in the world, like ghost stories or mythical creatures or hauntings and stuff like that. And then on Friday, we have Deadly Days, which is kind of a little bit more of a downer segment where I talk about some of the deadliest days in history. This can be anywhere, but most of them seem to focus on like school shootings or like mass shootings. And then always on Saturday, we have True Crime Tales. And yeah, that's it right now. That's all I've got for you. As always, don't do anything I wouldn't do. Be cautiously kind to others. Make good choices. And have a great day. Bye.